A billionaire storms into his son's room and finds the maid dancing, ankles jangling, palms sing in the air, while the paralyzed boy smiles. He opens his mouth to fire her, then the boy's big toe stirs. The maid is no ordinary maid, but a keeper of an old healing dance. Her rhythm will shake a family secret from its hiding place, and what the billionaire does next will change a city. Before we begin, tap like, share this with someone who needs hope, and drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is. Pre-dawn Kampala, noon in Accra, midnight Lagos. Story. The children in the compound answer. Though this night there are no children in the room. Only the wind through curtains and a whisper of bead anklets. In the city of Echo, where glass towers touch the clouds and the lagoon remembers the first fisherman, lived Adewale Balogun, a man whose money had money. People said he owned buildings that wore the sun like a necklace and companies that drank oil and spat numbers. If he snapped his fingers, doors opened. If he frowned, rain reconsidered. But even the hawk must land. And when hawks land, they remember the dirt. Adewale remembered the dirt every time he looked at his only son Tunde, whose legs had fallen silent after an accident, whose details the family did not discuss. Doctors had said the word paralysis. Therapists had said time. Lawyers had said a settlement. The house said nothing. On the day our tale takes its winding road, Adewale returned early from a meeting where numbers had bowed and figures had danced. He climbed the stairs of his big, careful house, the one with marble that could blind a careless eye, and heard something that did not belong in boardrooms. A drum. Not a wooden one, but a drum made of feet. Taka, 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 taka! The sound came from Tunde's room. He pushed open the door with the impatience of a man who had never been told, wait. There he saw Amina, small as a calabash, strong as the hand that holds it, our so-called maid, though the griots will tell you titles hide as much as they reveal. She wore a plain wrapper and a scarf, but her ankles wore shells that spoke. Her eyes were closed. Her body moved in a circle inside a circle, the way a story moves when it is telling the truth. Tunde sat by the window, eyes bright. The wheelchair watched too, an empty throne in a republic of air. What is this? Adewale's voice was a machete. Amina opened her eyes but did not startle. Good evening, sir. I'm teaching your son how to talk to his legs. By dancing? His laugh was dry yam. By breaking the rules of my house? Amina's gaze went past him, out the window to where the old Iroko tree that stood before the house swayed like a judge with a slow gavel. Where I come from, the drum walks before the feet, she said. If the drum says go, the foot remembers the road. Enough riddles, Adewale snapped. You're here to clean. Yes, sir, she said softly. And some dirt is inside the body. You cannot sweep it with a broom. He moved to Tunde, crouched so their eyes were on a level field. My son, are you in pain? Tunde shook his head. Baba, when Amina dances, I feel wind inside my legs, like a sleeping lizard turning in the sun. Lizards do not move when they are dead, Adewale said, then winced at his harshness. He softened. The doctors taught me many good things, Amina finished for him, a smile like a small lamp. This is not against doctors. This is before them, after them, under them. Out, Adewale said to her, standing. Leave now. We will discuss your employment later. Amina bowed. The shells on her ankles whispered, Don't be proud, rich man. Pride eats the hand that feeds it. Or maybe I only imagine that because griots hear what other ears cannot. She walked toward the door. Before she reached it, she turned and bold like pepper said, Sir, permit me one small thing. If you still wish to send me away, I will go and I will bless your gate as I leave. Adewale folded his arms. What small thing? Amina knelt and touched the floor with her palm. Let me sing while your son tries what he hasn't tried since the day the metal kissed him. Adewale almost said no. Then he saw Tunde's face, a hope so fragile a loud no could break it forever. And his tongue found mercy. Amina began to clap. Kepi-ik-pod, kipi-kiki-pa, a heartbeat's twin. She sang in Hausa, then Yoruba, then in the language that does not need translation. Do not be afraid. Her feet marked the corners of a square he could not see. Tunde watched, breathing like a runner at the start line, except he did not run. He willed. Look at your big toe, Amina said. Call it by name. Ask it for a favor. Tunde stared. Outside, the Iroko shifted. Inside, something as thin as a hair inside a hair remembered it was alive. His big toe quivered. Adewale's mouth opened and no sound came out. In the hush of that room, even the expensive clock forgot itself. "Shh, there," Amina whispered. "A toe is a small thing. It is where the river begins." Tunde laughed, small bubbles rising from a deep place. He looked at his father's hands, which were suddenly not made of granite. He looked at Amina, who had folded her dance into stillness, as mothers fold cloth after washing. "How?" Adewale said, not to challenge, to learn. Amina's eyes were two oases. "Because the body listens when you speak in its dialect. This rhythm is older than your house, sir. It is called Ruach Kafar in my grandmother's compound. Waterfoot. You pour the sound and the foot drinks." Adewale sat down without meaning to. For the first time since the accident, he felt something that was not anger or sorrow. It was curiosity, that goat that wanders into truth if you do not tie it. "Tell me," he said, "what else do you know that my money has not bought?" Amina smiled. "The drum will explain," she said. And the drum did, with feet and breath, and a map only the quiet could read. That night, when the moon was a little cup in the sky, Amina danced in the sitting room while Adewale watched. And Tunde tried to focus his attention down to where his toes were plotting a rebellion, the talking drum hanging as decoration in the corridor. Bought from a gallery for its look, never for its sound, seemed to inhale. "Story, story," the wind said through the palm leaves. "Story," answered the house, which had not spoken in many months. Elders say, when a masquerade enters the market, fools chase the costume. The wise ask about the dancer inside. Who was Amina? The next day, Adewale asked the steward to bring tea to the small courtyard where the baobab of his father's time wore sun and shade like a shawl. Amina came, set the tray, and waited for the way of people who have been ordered around and chosen to obey strangers, but not lies. "Sit," Adewale said. She hesitated, then sat at the very edge of the bench like a bird that knows cats. "What do you want from us?" He did not lace it with suspicion. He had money enough for suspicion and had found it poor company. "To work," she said simply. "To wash, to sweep, to cook a little. And to keep my promise to my grandmother." "What promise?" Amina touched the shells at her ankle. "To carry the dance where it was needed." "And you chose this house for charity?" He tried to smile. It stuttered. "No," she said, and her eyes met his fully for the first time. "I chose this house for justice." The word sat between them and looked at both like an auntie deciding who needed more scolding. "Explain," Adewale said softly. "In Jangir, my village," Amina began, "there was a small clinic with a big heart and a small generator with a big noise. The clinic died when the generator died. The generator died when the fuel stopped coming. The fuel stopped coming because the company that promised to supply it promised profits more loudly. The company had a parent. The parent had a board. The board had a chairman. He wore a wristwatch that could tell the time in cities he had never visited." Adewale did not move. The watch on his wrist felt as heavy as a confession. "My grandmother," Amina continued, "was a boka of the dance, a healer whose medicine was rhythm. She said, if the road is blocked, dance past the stump. She taught me Ruach Kafa, Dambu, Zagaya, circles within circles. She told me the rich man you will meet is not evil. He's distracted. Shake his attention till it falls where it should." She looked at him without malice. "So I came to Lagos. I found your gate. I asked for work not as a dancer, but as a cleaner. We all start where we are allowed in." "And if I'd fired you yesterday," he asked, "I would have left a blessing on your gate and tried another road. The drum does not argue with a wall. It finds a door." He wanted to be angry. It would be easier to put on anger than to take off pride. But pride is a poorly tailored coat. It scratches and tears. He sighed. "And my son?" Tunde will learn to send messages downriver," Amina said. "His legs are not disloyal. They are afraid. The bodyguards themselves too well. We will teach hospitality." "Will he walk?" The question sat in the shade of the baobab and held its breath. "I am not a god," she said, "but I'm a drummer, and drummers know how to ask the earth for favors." They began. Mornings were for exercises the physiotherapist left. Afternoons were for Waterfoot, a grid of claps and steps and breaths, a bridge built of beats. In the first week, Tunde's big toe became a gossip, whispering to its neighbor. In the second, the toes held hands and tugged the foot a grain of sand's length. By the third, the ankle remembered a shy tilt, the knee a tiny nod. When setbacks came, as they do like relatives who never call first, Amina told Aesop through Africa, a river that runs straight is a river that was not honest about stones. She laughed easily, cried privately, and kept showing up like dawn. One evening after a session that left Tunde glowing and quiet, Adewale stood by the corridor drum. He touched it like a man touches the shoulder of a brother with whom he has quarreled too long. Play it, Amina said behind him. I do not know how. Then it will teach you. He lifted the stick and struck. The drum said bow in a voice that belonged to older rooms. He struck again, bow, bow. A smile visited, sat for tea, refused to leave. What is this one called? He asked. Gangan, Amina said. It speaks. You must speak back. He learned the simplest call. Are you there? And the drum answered, I am here. For the first time since the accident, Adewale felt useful in his own house. But stories do not go in straight lines. They coil like snakes that do not wish to be stepped on. One afternoon, a man came in a car whose paint smelled like a lie. He wore a suit that told long stories about his importance. He was Chief Otunla, a partner from one of Adewale's companies, the kind whose smile counts other people's money. Balogan, Otunla laughed. You've been hiding. Meetings miss you. Investors whisper. Are you sick? You look soft. He noticed Amina carrying a tray. He looked at her the way a market looks at a goat. Ah, so this is the medicine. Adewale saw the insult slide toward Amina and stepped aside. This is my teacher, he said. Silence. The good kind, the one that rearranges furniture. Otunla's smile collapsed like overcooked yams. Your teacher? She is teaching my son to speak to his legs, Adewale said, and me to speak to my drum. Drum. Otunla laughed again, but the laughter had ants in it. My friend, leave folk things to folk people. We have shareholders. Adewale's eyes were calm water. We also have villages. That night, under the baobab, he told Amina the rest of the accident story. How Tunde's car had swerved to avoid a pothole that should have been filled by a contractor whose invoice had been paid by a company that belonged to a subsidiary that answered to a board whose chairman's signature was his. The hole in the road was a hole in my attention, he said. The city keeps receipts for such things. So does the soul. Amina listened like the earth listens to footsteps. Then you know what comes next. He did and did not. Tell me. You will return what you took without knowing you held it, she said. You will make a place where Ruakafa and medicine share a room. Your friends will laugh. Then they will bring their children. And the shock you promised this city? He asked, trying to be light. Wait for the festival of first footsteps, she said. And her smile had teeth. Let us see who dances. Griots say, if you want to plant a forest, begin with the shadow. Adewale began with an apology no one had demanded because apologies, like rain, do not wait for invitations. He called a press conference. Cameras blinked. Microphones stood like goat's ears. I have built towers that shine, he said. Today I begin building rooms for small victories. He announced a center on the land he had reserved for another high building, the House of Talking Feet. A place where physiotherapy and dance would share the same roof, where aunties who knew old songs would be paid like consultants and doctors would consult like elders. People were shocked. Some said he had gone mad, bitten by a benevolent mosquito. Others said he was campaigning for an office he had not declared. But when a man with money kneels, even his critics must rearrange their sentences. In the House of Talking Feet, mirrors were few and drums were many. Nurses took pulses while drummers took tempo. There were ramps and rails and mats like small fills. On the door hung a sign painted by children. Bring your toes and your troubles. And Tunde, on the first day the center opened its doors, he arrived with Amina and his father. He wore shoes that made him not know whether to laugh or cry. Waterfoot began, soft and steady. KPA kapa, KPA kapa kapa. The room filled with people whose legs had stories, stroke survivors, accident menders, children whose feet had chosen different maps. Look at your big toe, Amina told them all. Call it by name. When Tunde's toe stirred, the whole room felt it, the way a crowd feels a goal before the net knows. When his ankle tilted and held, a drum somewhere smiled. When he pulled himself up and stood at the rail, there was nothing miraculous about it. It was simply honest. The body admitting it had been guarding the gate too fiercely. "Don't rush," Amina said, though she too wanted to run around the room with joy. "Quiet steps, last." Weeks became a braided rope of effort. There were days of sunshine and days of rain, where the body sulked like a goat without salt. But the festival approached, and the city's gossip set out chairs early. The festival of first footsteps happened under the Iroko that had watched the beginning. Drums from the north and west and in between came with their manners and accents. There were elders and rappers, bankers and sneakers, children and everything bright. Someone roasted corn, someone else roasted arguments. The air smelled like pepper and promise. A stage was only a mat. The program was a gourd with holes. Whoever had a sound poured it in. Amina opened the day with a bow to the four corners. She spoke in Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo, English, and at last dance. "We are not here to worship the body," she said. "We are here to thank it for trying." The drummers answered. One by one, people told foot stories. An old fisherman took 3 slow steps and the crowd clapped like waves. A little girl who had never walked without her sticks took 2, then 3, then 4. And a hawk in the Iroko forgot his prey for a breath and watched. Then came Tunde. He stood with Amina on one side and a Dewal on the other. The city held its chest. "KPA Kapow," the claps went. "Bo," the drum said. "Come," the air hummed. He took a step. The mat accepted it like a promise that had waited politely. He took another. The Iroko told its leaves to hush. On the third, he stumbled and laughed, which is a kind of balance. On the fourth, he did not fall. Adewale's tears came like rich men's secrets, at first with reluctance, then all at once. He did not care who saw. He lifted his son, not high like a trophy, but close like a truth you want to keep warm. Chief Otunla was in the crowd. He did not clap at first. Then he did, once, twice. Then as if his palms had remembered a language without asking his head for permission. "Shocked, are you?" Amina teased him afterward, not unkindly. He shook his head, grinning despite himself. "I'm educated," he said. "Education is always a surprise." The real shock came at the end. Adewale took the microphone, and it did not protest, perhaps because it knew there were words he had never said. "The land at Third Mainland, the one we kept for the tallest tower," he began. The crowd murmured. "We will not build a tower there. We will build 3 houses of talking feet, one for each bridge that kept us crossing when we thought we would drown." Even Amina's shells went quiet to hear it. In a city where announcements often poured like rain and evaporated like gossip, this one stayed. Papers were signed. Bulldozers sang a new song. Architects came with rulers and left with drumsticks. At dusk, when the festival had melted into stories, a woman bent like a question approached Amina. "Your grandmother would have been proud," she said. "Where is she?" "In the ground, teaching worms how to dance," Amina replied, eyes soft. "But she came today. Could you not feel her hand in the wind?" The woman nodded. "I felt my own mother's too." These drums wake the dead in the right way. Later, when the compound was quiet and the moon had taken off his festival clothes, Adewale sat with Amina under the baobab. He held the talking drum the way a farmer holds the first yam. "You came to this house for justice," he said. "Have you found any?" Amina tilted her head. "Justice is not a cup you drain. It is a river you keep clearing of stones so boats can pass." "Oh, then stay," he said, "not as a maid, as head of rhythm." The title sounded like a joke until you looked at the room the rhythm had built. She laughed, surprised into it. "I will stay," she said, "on one condition. Name it." "When the next child comes who cannot pay with money, you will let them pay with song," she said, "and you will accept it." He struck the drum lightly. "Deal," it said. As for Tunda, his walking grew like a patient vine. He used sticks, then one, rails, then none. Some days fast, some days stopping to talk to his toes because friends deserve conversation. He never ran as he once had, reckless and sun-drunk. He walked like a boy who had learned that the ground is an ancestor and the future is a rhythm, not a race. Elders end stories with a broom. They sweep away what should not follow you to bed and leave for you what will feed your dreams. Moral: when wealth forgets its drum, legs lose their road. When the humble sing, even the rich remember their feet. Story, story. "It is finished," we answer. But you know a tale like this does not finish. It ties its wrapper and goes to the next compound.